Okay, hi guys. Now we've finally got a little bit of decent weather in November in Scotland, which is a rarity in itself. I'm going to be going through the process of changing the tyres from these knobbly off-road tyres to some Avon Distanzias, more road biased, on my MT500. I'm just going to go through a step-by-step of changing the tyres. The front is completely flat because the tube's just no good whatsoever, as you can see already there. It's a simple process on tube tyres. You can get away without a bead breaker even with where tube tyres are concerned, because the beads don't seal quite as tightly as a tubeless does. And with a few basic tools anyone can do this at home, so I'm just going to go through the process. I'm going to start with the front wheel. So we've got the bike up on its main stand and an axle stand under the front bash guard there, just to hold the front wheel up off the floor, make life a bit easier. Alternatives to this, if you don't have something to put under the bash guard or you've nowhere to put support at the front, is just throw something like a breeze block onto the rear rack, which should weight the back end down and lift the front. The back end will naturally sit high, so when you do the back you don't need to worry about this. So front wheel first, we need to slacken and uncouple the front brake adjuster to so the brakes aren't gripping, and 2 pinch bolts on this side and then a long Allen bolt. Slacken these, undo this, draw this out, and then you can actually wriggle this off the drum, leaving the whole drum assembly intact and still attached to the front fork leg. Right, okay guys, that's the wheel off. As I say, you'll often find with these they'll just push off the bead with the tube tyres, so you don't really need a bead breaker. In the absence of a proper bead breaker, which while they're not cheap are a fantastic tool to have laying around the shed, especially if you're doing tubeless tyres on other bikes or even cars, what you can do is use a shovel with a blunt edge. I would only recommend doing this if you're planning on ditching the tyre though, because it can damage the tyre. Support the wheel on a couple of pieces of wood to raise it off the ground, and then put the edge of the shovel just under the rim and give it a good shove, and that should break the bead. But you shouldn't need to do that. A good shove off the bead should do the trick. You'll need a couple of tyre irons, just nice compact small ones will be fine. You'll need some tyre soap. This is a huge tub. This costs about £5 or £6. You can get much smaller ones. But tyre soap is the proper stuff to use. Don't use washing up liquid. It contains salt, it's not good for your rims, and it's not good for the rubber. If you're pushed and you don't really have a choice, then I would say something like furniture polish, like Mr. Sheen's spray furniture polish will do it a pinch to spray around the bead. Whatever you use, make sure you clean it off thoroughly afterwards, but certainly do not use washing up liquid. Okay, so I'm going to go into lecture mode a bit here. Now we're replacing the tyre. The most common problem that you have with these things, and the most common sort of shortcut and mistake that people make with them, is they replace just the tyre. What you need is a new rim tape. These cost pennies, a couple of pounds at the most. So rubber tape that goes around the inside of your rim and protects your new shiny new tube from the spokes. You'll need a new tube. Again, for what a new tube costs, it's stupid not to. And it's your tube that keeps your tyre inflated. And of course, you'll need your nice shiny new tyre that's thick with tread. Watch out for little things like this spacer dropping out. Obviously you don't want to lose that. So, if you start opposite the valve and work away from yourself so you can kneel and hold the tyre down at this side. Once you've got that in place, what I like to do is insert a third tyre iron just to hold that in place. Now I have 2 short ones and 2 long ones. The long ones are quite hefty. I use them for tubeless tyres on bikes and for cars. And then work around a wee bit. And just take little nips at a time. Don't try and get too ambitious. And you'll find that the further round you get, the easier it gets, to a point where you can practically pull the thing off by hand. With a tubeless, again, you've usually got a deeper well, and you'll need to do a bit more work with the tyre iron before you can get to it by hand like so. So that's one side off. What you can do now at this point is pop the valve out, pop the tube out, and pull that out completely. Now that particular tube is shot. It's leaking, I suspect it's leaking from the valve area, so I'll be getting rid of that completely. One thing I didn't mention is, as standard, these will come with a rim lock. Now I'll have to show you that on the rear tyre because I've already gotten rid of it on the front one. They're only really necessary for off-roading. They basically just offer an additional bit of security, locking the tyre to the rim opposite the valve. As I said, they're not necessary for standard use at all. Okay, so what we do now is stand the tyre upright. You've got one side of the bead off, and then using your tyre iron in the other side, exactly the same procedure, but you're just working it off the same side. That's probably quite tricky to see. I'll try and get a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing here. So you see there, we're just lifting, feeding in and levering, and again eventually you'll get to a point where you can just pull this off by hand like so. One tyre, one rim. What we're going to do for now is we're going to get the rim take. Now it'll be stamped with the rim diameter of from and to, and you probably see on that it's 20 to 21 inches. And we need to find the valve stem hole, which is there. Place this over the valve stem hole, and then it's just a case of wrapping it round, making sure it's laying perfectly flat, making sure it's covering all the protrusions, smack down the centre, wriggle it across if it's slightly skewed, like so, and we have a nice protective rubber band essentially to protect the tyre. Now, the next step of the process is fitting the tyre. All motorcycle tyres are rotation specific, direction of rotation, and on the tyre will be an arrow which says direction of rotation or wheel rotation or something similar, which you may be able to see if I can hold this up to the light. Direction of rotation. It doesn't always follow the logical tread pattern. Avon's Road Riders, for example, which are another favourite tyre of mine, for front fitment the tread pattern goes the opposite way, so that would be a forward facing for the Road Rider, whereas for this Distanzia it goes the sort of logical direction of the arrows facing forward, as it were. So what you need to do is make sure you've got your direction of rotation in mind, and also make sure that you've got the correct direction of rotation on the wheel. Now on a spoke wheel it's particularly important because you haven't got shaped alloy spokes to direct you to the correct rotation, so you need to make absolutely sure you know which way you're going. So it's a case of keeping note which side the disc is on or the drum is on or what have you, but just make some kind of note. If there's any possibility you might not be sure, get a little bit of Tipp-Ex or chalk or something and just draw an arrow on the rim so you know where you're at. Okay, the next step is to get the tube out. The tyres, incidentally, just so you MT guys know, this front one is a 3x21 Avon Distanzia, and the rear one is a 4x18. So take the tube out of the box, quick check around the tube, make sure there's no obvious nasties, rips, tears, damage, abrasion or anything like that. And likewise, if you have a quick check around the tyre, the outside and the inside, make sure there's no sharp stones or anything inside. Okay, so that's the front tyre on. So that's new rim tape, new tube and a new tyre. An extra thing you can do is just clean off the tyre wall with a bit of water while it's laid on its side. Do this outside and see if there are any bubbles escaping, which would suggest that there's a leak in the tube and it's pushing air out. Take it easy for the first sort of 100 miles or so till you bed the new tyre in, is the next thing, and check the pressures regularly once you've fitted a new tyre and tube. The same goes with a tubeless tyre as well. Don't just assume all's well and good and just go off, but check them at least every single day before you ride for the first week or so. Make sure it's maintaining its pressure. There we go, one MT500, one new front 21-inch Avon Distanzia, and of course the only thing to do now, once just a quickie on nipping this up, main bolt back through, hook this back on, readjust it so that the brake bites accordingly, tighten up your pinch bolts, but once you've tightened your main bolt, just give the wheel a spin by hand and make sure it rotates freely like so. And of course the final thing to do is this little sticky here, peel that away. Your rear wheel, military simplicity, you just gotta love it. Here we have the drive unit with the cush drive and the drum brake assembly, all in one little compact unit round here. The sprocket is actually like a ring which bolts onto the outer edge. There's your brake assembly and everything. And it's basically a quick release rear wheel. It's quite easy apart from that one spacer that you see there, that big chunky one. What you do is you take a bar, which you'll have in your Rotax toolkit if you have a Rotax toolkit, stick it through that hole in that on the left hand side there, unwind it, draw out the long shaft, wriggle that spacer out, pop your wheel off.